Welcome to another movie plot and enjoy the memories. We open in Detroit 1958 on a production line for the Plymouth Fury. One stands alone with its bright red paint job and breaks a factory worker's hand when he cops a field. Another man takes a seat inside to test the radio, but he ashes on the premium vinyl upholstery, so will be found dead. 20 years later, the football player Dennis picks up his best friend for school because his parents won't let him buy a car. Regina treats her meek son like he's made of glass, and thus he has developed less than his childhood friend. Dennis tries to hook Arnold up with a girl nicknamed the Walking Sperm Bank, but his short friend worries about the minimum deposit. At school they talk about girls some more, and Roseanne flirts with Dennis, but he only entertains it until something better comes along. Her name is Leigh, and she's a new transfer student who dresses like a choir boy to show that she's more academic than Rosie. During automotive class, Arnie is bullied by several students whose ringleader Buddy looks like he could be these kids' dad. The 30-year-old teenager pulls a switchblade, then destroys Arnie's lunch and glasses to keep him weak and blind. Coming to the rescue is Dennis, who disarms Sideburns, but even the mightiest warrior can be felled by a single ball grab by Moochie. Dennis cries for the teacher's help, which he should have done before getting lucky with the knife, because Mr. Casey don't play no games. When Buddy denies owning a switchblade, Casey grabs Timu Travolta by the scruff of his shirt and shakes it out of him. Moochie only gets detention for fondling students, but Buddy is expelled because he's a complete psycho who should have graduated in the 60s. On their way home after school, Arnie has Dennis pull over because he's immediately fallen in love with a now dilapidated Plymouth. The creepy owner George calls her Christine and says that he inherited her from his brother who died only a few weeks ago. Arnie buys the rust bucket for $250, but at home Regina blows her lid for purchasing a car without consulting mother. His father Michael silently plants himself in the corner while his wife refuses to let Arnie keep his new girlfriend at the house.
Fine.
He decides to drive Christine over to a junkyard where the owner Darnell is a grumpy old man who's always trying to fight somebody.
You understand?
Arnie gets accused of having the look of a troublemaker written all over his face, but he looks like he's come here to do the guy's taxes. Over the next few weeks, Arnie works at an impressive rate, even by the mechanic's standards, to get Christine on the road. Darnell decides to hire him for various jobs around the junkyard to pay for new parts, but we never actually see him doing any work. Arnie stops needing to wear glasses, and throughout the movie his attire gets more 50s inspired until going full-blown rebel without a cause. Dennis keeps getting blown off by his friends, so he decides to confront George about the car and what the hell is going on. It turns out his brother and his wife off themselves inside Tina after their daughter choked to death in the backseat, but George conveniently left that part out. Dennis decides to have a closer look at her, so at night he breaks into Darnell's garage to find Christine nearly restored. However, before he can open the door, the radio turns on, so he flees back out the window before the property owner gets out the shotgun. The next day at school, Dennis is so excited to see Leigh chewing on her eraser that he lifts the desk. He decides to ask her out on a date, so glides right past Rosie to ask if the new girl wants to go to prom with him. It turns out that somebody has already asked her, so a rejected Dennis gets to meet her new boyfriend at the team's next game. To everybody's surprise, it's Arnold who pulls up in a fully restored Christine and begins sucking down the new girl's face. Dennis is so distracted by this that he's forced to retire at the ripe old age of 18 because some dude tackles his spine in half. Sometime later he wakes up in a hospital bed where he'll remain drinking medical beers until he miraculously fuses back together. Arnie says he has another date tonight, so he leaves his friend to recover and takes his girlfriend to the drive-in theater along with Leigh. While rounding second base with the hottest girl in school according to the boys, she pulls away and runs out into the rain all dramatically. She feels like Arnie's moving too fast and shows the car more attention than he does her, but it's raining, so they get back inside. Leigh isn't the only jealous girlfriend, as Tina pretends her windshield wiper is stuck to get Arnie away from the other woman. She then locks her inside and the radio comes on, causing Leigh to choke on her burger because the stations only play the classics. Arnie tries to save her, but not very hard since he doesn't want to smash a window and harm his girl. Fortunately for the other girl, she manages to unlock the door from the inside, and a passing stranger Heimlichs the burger out of her esophagus. Arnie then drives Leigh home, where she questions their entire relationship and why Tina stalls every time they're making out. She then pushes Arnie away when the little creep gets forceful and says she never wants to go near the car again, but later must forget. When Casanova goes to leave, Christine won't start, so he promises to check her oil later, which immediately turns her on. He drives her back to Darnell's garage and leaves her there, but sometime during the night Buddy and the cast of Grease break in. They proceed to destroy every inch of the car while she just sits there and takes her beating like a piñata at a birthday party. The next morning Arnie arrives with Leigh, who changed her mind about going near Christine, but she's happy she did. Upon seeing all of his hard work wasted, he snaps at Leigh because she never liked Tina anyway, and he's gone a bit completely mad. That night he even yells at his parents because Christine would still be alive if Regina had just let her stay here instead. Dad finally grows a voice to tell Arnie not to walk away, but it's already too late because that red popped collar gives him James Dean strength. Returning to the garage to mourn his loss, Arnie vows to restore Tina to her original beauty and get revenge on her attackers. She seems to like that idea, so repairs her own engine, but Arnie doesn't act surprised and just tells her to show him some more.
Show me.
Christine flashes her headlights and does what I would call a reverse vehicular striptease by putting all of her curves back in their right places. She even regenerates new upholstery and glass while Arnie pitches a tent, but now comes the revenge part. In an automotive I spit on your grave plot, Christine begins with Moochie, who upon seeing his victim assumes that Arnie is driving. He isn't, and Tina's here all by herself to chase the surprisingly spry bully through the most abandoned part of the city. However, this big boy's got hops and escapes through a series of gradually narrowing side roads until he's eventually safe in a warehouse. Or so he assumes, but Christine just tears off her sides to reach him and Moochie gets crushed by a car going like 1 mile per hour. The next day Super Detective Rudolph shows up at the school and suggests that Arnie murdered the bully in his new car. He parks his bony behind on Tina's face and tries to scare the kid by telling him that Moochie's legs had to be scraped up with a shovel, but nobody cares. Arnie just waits until he leaves, then wipes off his girl, but since she's a car he calls Leigh that night to try and date an actual human. She wants to reconnect but doesn't even get a chance to respond before Arnie is shouting profanities and slamming down the phone. Tina's got him acting crazy while she sneaks off alone at night to take care of the bullies and tracks down Buddy's Camaro. He's with his youngest son Richie, who just assumes that Arnie's behind the tinted windows looking for trouble. They pull into a gas station where Don works, so Bud feels like the three of them can take Christine, but she isn't looking to fight. She just crashes into the Camaro, killing Richie and blowing up Don inside the station, but he was one of her abusers anyway. Christine emerges from the explosion on fire, then chases down the ringleader, who's pretty convinced by now that this isn't Arnie. Buddy is run over and reduced into a flaming pile of bully while Tina rolls her charred body back to Darnell's garage. Arnie is out working late, so his boss grabs the shotgun, assuming that some car thief just took the Fury out for a joyride. Upon seeing nobody behind the wheel, he climbs up inside Tina, so she turns the radio of imminent death on and locks the witness inside. While playing her classics, she crushes Darnell with the backrest because she can't have anyone knowing that she got damaged last night. The following morning, Christine has regenerated and staged the crime scene to look like Darnell shotgunned himself in the front seat. Since he was working last night, Arnie has an alibi. However, Rudy still doesn't trust anybody dressed like the villain in a spaghetti western. Sometime later, Leigh decides to visit Dennis and they try figure out a way to get Arnie to break up with his new girlfriend. These two could easily get something going between themselves, however are always distracted trying to save their friend. They agree that if Arnie won't listen to reason, they're going to have to destroy Christine, so Leigh hides herself when Arnie comes to pick up Dennis. He's wearing his red suede, so you know he's in a fiery mood, and takes Dennis for a drive while acting like a complete psycho. Arnie drinks beers and swerves into oncoming traffic while ranting about his girlfriend, but when Dennis says Leigh, he says hell no, Christine. He's even beginning to sound like George, and as Dennis watches the speedometer tick backwards, he decides that this rolling bedpan needs to die. The next day he leaves a message with Christine to meet him at Darnell's tonight, then shows up with Leigh to prepare an ambush. They move a bulldozer inside, and Dennis's job is to crush Tina when she enters through the front doors while Leigh acts as bait over at the office. However, she was already hiding in the shed under a pile of garbage and chases the ex around trying to run her over. Arnie is shown behind the wheel this time, but Dennis shields Leigh with the dozer's bucket, so he's unable to run her over and Christine. For some reason, this girl then leaves the green zone to stand in the office and just hopes that what happens next doesn't go horribly wrong. Christine comes crashing into the wall, but Arnie gets thrown through the windshield and impaled with a shard of glass, so I guess she got lucky. He dies while caressing the girl he loves, but his friends see it as he just threw his life away for a $250 car. Christine makes one last attempt to crush Leigh by herself, however Dennis grabs her booty with the bulldozer's bucket. He then destroys Tina's rear while the romantic rival enjoys the show until they're satisfied that she won't be stealing any more boyfriends. Leigh runs over to the dozer, but before she and Dennis can get the cabin steamed up, Christine begins to regenerate. They finish the job and flatten Tina out completely, and then by morning they have her crushed into a cube. Assuming that the nightmare is over, Leigh and Dennis depart. However, we're shown that there's still some life in the old girl. And the movie ends.